Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is how to stop sneak eating junk food. So during this episode, I'm going to share with you some of my experiences with sneak eating junk food and how I accidentally discovered the root cause of the problem through taking a journey of self-discovery. So just to be clear, even though I know that the title of this podcast is about how to stop sneak eating junk food, I'm not going to give you any tips or tricks on how to avoid eating junk food. You'll not hear me sharing any strategies about how to stay hydrated so that you won't crave sugar, or how you should make time to get proper sleep so that you don't want to binge in the afternoon, or how to meditate so that you can feel peaceful and you don't want to rip open a bag of chips at the end of a long and stressful day. Back when I was a personal fitness trainer and nutrition coach, you would have heard me giving this kind of advice morning, noon, and night, all while sneak eating junk food behind the scenes. The reason I don't talk about food today is because since fixing my emotional eating habits through taking a journey of self-discovery, I know that emotional eating has nothing to do with food. Yep, you heard me. Emotional eating has nothing to do with food, and I am living proof of this since I struggled with secret binge eating for 30 years. Today, as a recovered emotional eater and mindset coach, I help hundreds of women put down their thoughts about food and open their hearts to loving themselves just the way they are before they ever lose a pound. In this podcast, I'll share with you about how I learned that I was never actually craving junk food to begin with. I was actually subconsciously craving guilt. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, and I thought so too, until I experimented with some of the tools that I was learning in my self-discovery classes. And before I knew it, my old, sneaky, self-sabotaging habits of binge eating, they disappeared. So let me first explain what self-discovery is and why it's massively powerful in fixing emotional eating for good. Think about this. How many times have you heard yourself say things like, I have no willpower. I must be a sugar addict. I'm just one of those people who can't say no to sweets. I know my food triggers. I just can't be trusted around food. Food just calls my name. I've never had a good relationship with food. I'm an all or nothing type person. So these are some phrases that I pulled out of my memory bank from a time where I struggled with binge eating daily. It wasn't until I took my first course in self-discovery that I recognized that some of these thoughts were the very same thoughts that were keeping me stuck. And had I not become aware of these subconscious thoughts, it's very possible that I would have stayed stuck in this vicious cycle between strict dieting and binge eating forever. So let me back up for those of you who don't know what self-discovery is, so that you can appreciate why this method will work for everyone. Unlike traditional diet methods or even traditional therapy, which is typically great for supportive suggestions while focusing on the problem, self-discovery is solution-based. It helps you take a bird's eye look at yourself and become introspective about your own personal relationship with you and you. This is where you will learn to give yourself permission to change and to get curious about your sneaky habits and bust through your own BS thoughts that are meant to keep you stuck. So we're going to keep this podcast PG, but you know what BS means, right? Think about the times where you say you want one thing and then you end up doing another when you're such a nice person to other people, but then you turn around and you stab yourself in the back 10,000 times a day by saying mean things to yourself and then shoving crap into your face that makes you feel horrible about yourself in the long run. But when you went into it, you were like, oh, this is going to make me feel calm. This will make me feel better. Like, when you compare yourself, when you judge yourself, when you blame yourself, when you guilt yourself, when you regret your choices, and when you hold yourself prisoner in your own personal justice system, endlessly seeking happiness from outside of yourself and never recognizing that you, my friend, are holding the keys to your own happiness. Self discovery is a solution to free yourself in the places in your life where you are keeping yourself stuck, standing in your own way. And if you think about it clearly, there really is no one but you who can free yourself from the space because you're the only one thinking and you're the only one listening in your own mind. So you might be surprised at how many thoughts are being said and are being heard that are coming from a past version of yourself. In fact, if you go into my Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, which I'll put the link in the show notes, and you type in 2014 or 2015 into the search bar, you're going to see a very different version of me right there in Facebook land. When I started the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group, I wanted to save my past group name and post because I never wanted to forget how my journey began. Back then, the group was called Keep It Clean. It was all about clean eating. And I spent every day posting pictures of the amazing clean recipes that I was cooking daily. I was a personal fitness trainer and I was a nutrition coach. I was a former figure competitor and I was still doing Ironman triathlons at that time. I had groups of people that I coached for athletics. I wrote daily diets for a lot of my clients and spent my day and life focused on food. To my clients, it seemed like I was the perfect example of someone who never ate an ounce of junk food. But that's how I wanted them to see me because I didn't want anyone to know what was really going on behind the scenes. I didn't want you to see the real me. Even my family had not much idea because I hid it so well. Yeah, they thought I was a little crazy with food, but nobody knew how much I was internally suffering with low self esteem, lack of confidence, constant worry, constant fear, self loathing, and an insane amount of guilt. I didn't tell anyone because I wouldn't have wanted them to worry about me. You see, I was the fixer. I gave people advice. People came to me for help. And I have to admit that it did sometimes get exhausting, but I would never tell anyone that I was exhausted because if I told somebody that I needed help, then I was afraid that they'd think that I was struggling and then they wouldn't come to me for help anymore. They wouldn't come to me for advice and then nobody would need me. The thought of people not needing me terrified me. My confidence in myself was so low and my insecurities were so loud. So when I was alone, it was hard to drown out these loud suggestions that a trip to yogurt land wouldn't just be the best thing to take the edge off from an exhausting day. You know, yogurt land, right? It's that like, it's one of those frozen yogurt places that I don't even know if they still have them after COVID, but it was one of those things that you could like go in and take your own portion and whatever. But honestly, I haven't been in there in so long. I don't even know if they still exist. I'm going to assume they do. But this is how it used to go down. I'd be on my way home from work. And remember, I was a personal fitness trainer and I was actually a licensed massage therapist. So I took a lot of clients in the evenings once, my husband was home and the kids were settled and stuff. So on the way home, which could be like, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night or so, 8 o'clock at night, even, I convinced myself that the kids would just love it if I brought them home a little surprise. I mean, after all, I had to work. So, like, I felt a little guilty about that. Right. So, innocently enough, I went in thinking that I was going in to go get this frozen yogurt for them. And I convinced myself that I would just have like a little cup. Ha! Can you imagine what ended up happening? Yeah, this didn't go like I had planned, which it never does. Like you'll tell yourself just one bite, just one cookie, just one handful, and it doesn't ever work that way. That's where the sneaking comes in. So I'd walk into the store telling myself, oh, I'll just take a little taste. And then I'd even convince myself to take one of those little like taster cups because I was like, oh, I don't know if my son would like this coconut. Let me taste it for him. And then I'd go down the line, taste all the taste. 10 minutes spent just doing that. Then I'd be like, oh, I can get some. And I didn't end up taking the small cup though. I'd end up taking the huge cup. And then I would carefully, like scientifically layer my large cup with sprinkles on the bottom. And then I would take some yogurt. Then I'd put chocolate chips and then some yogurt and then Oreo pieces and then some yogurt and then more sprinkles and then Reese's and then, I mean, whatever else they had. But by the end of it, like I had like a $20 frozen yogurt with garbage, pile after pile. And then I'd go back and I'd get small cups for my kids. And they'd always ask for an extra cup, an empty one. Then I'd go into my car alone and I knew what I was going to do. Like I was like, I'm not bringing home this huge yogurt thing. There's no way. So I would eat most of what I had in there in the car, including sometimes going into my kids' stuff after I'd just eaten my own huge thing. But I would save just a little bit, like enough to put in that small cup. And I would scrape it all out, put it in the small cup, put it in the bag with the kids' stuff. And then I would go home and be like, oh, we all got yogurt. And I would sit and eat with them, but like nothing had ever happened. Like I didn't tell them that I just scarfed down an entire huge cup of my own in the car. And I felt like the hero for a little bit, right? Because it was like, mommy's home. Did you bring us yogurt? And this was like my weekly thing. And it was a couple of times a week. This was just like one way that I snuck food. And in other episodes, I have shared and will share more. So if you haven't listened to all the episodes from the beginning, go back and listen because I say little tidbits of my past and my history in each episode. But this is just like one way that I used to convince myself to sneak and hide food. This little voice in the back of my head, it always said the same thing. You work so hard. It'll make the kids happy. You can just get a small cup this time. And that lie got me out of the car and then into the autopilot that I was experiencing for decades and decades and decades. I didn't know at the time that there was this sneaky subconscious craving for guilt, shame, disappointment, regret, being angry at myself. It allowed me to call myself names. It allowed me to mentally beat myself up and then blame food for it. And then it also used to allow me to not trust myself because I went in literally breaking promises to myself. I made promises and then I broke them. It reminded me when I woke up in the morning what a loser I was. And also, it kept me feeling really fake, like not authentic, like not myself, like not the true me. So this was the insanity that went on for decades. Are you doing this to yourself too? So what's the difference between the private you and the public you? Dun, dun, dun. That is the question that I want you to ask yourself. You might be saying right now, like, whoa, Lisa, hold on, slow down, sister. I don't want to show the private me to anybody because it's nobody's dang business how I spend my downtime. That downtime where it's like just you. Everybody's gone to bed. You're on that couch with your comfy clothes on and your blanket and your remote control and your phone and your snacks, popcorn, chips, chocolate, crackers, peanut butter, cereal, cheese. Oh, life is good, but is it really? Because you know that this is sort of like a self-inflicted abusive behavior because it carries a weight that's really heavy in your soul. It actually is meant to hurt you. And you know that because every morning you wake up and you feel awful about yourself. And it's a secret that you're keeping and you think it's just for you. And you're like, this is great. End of a long day. Like it's just me and my snacks and my phone and my, Netflix or whatever. But it is a secret and it's one that you wouldn't share with others. Like you wouldn't be like, if the camera was on you, we all do those Facebook posts of like, look at my great meal that I had today and look at me at the farmer's market and all that stuff. But like, you're not taking pictures of yourself on that couch and you know it any more than I was taking pictures of myself in that car, just not happening. And so it becomes the secret and every secret has a heavy weight to it. So today after taking this journey of self-discovery and identifying my invisible emotional relationship with food. And it is invisible. And I'm going to show you why in a few minutes. Today, I'm an open book. My heart is open. My shame that I had before is in the light. And I'm no longer afraid of the shadows from my past because they're matured now and they live here in this decade with me. And this is a concept that I call maturing frozen emotions. And that's something that I teach my self-discovery students in my Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system. I never sneak. I never hide food. I never steal food, which I kind of used to do because I would go into, those places that had the bins and I'd put my hand underneath and grab a handful walking around the store like I didn't do anything, I never stuff or overeat anything. I don't count calories. I don't write any of my foods down in a food journal. I don't track my points. I don't omit any food groups. I simply eat what I want to eat, which for the most part, I do care about myself now so much, and I care about my human body. So for the most part, I do put high quality foods into my mouth because I like myself too much to eat all that crap. And when I say crap, I mean crap. CRAP. It's an acronym that stands for chemicals, refined sugars, artificial sweeteners and colors, and processed foods. So now let me be clear. When I work with my students in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System or in my Mindset Makeover or in any of the other programs that I have available, we don't talk about food at all. Basically, because I find talking about food to be boring. I think that talking about food is so boring because let's face it, you already know what crap food is and you already know what's good for you and what's not good for you. Like you understand that if you walk into like a fresh bakery and you have a piece of bread with like real butter, you understand the difference between that and eating an entire container of like garlic cheesy puffs from Pillsbury Doughboy container. Like, the difference, right? And so if you're sitting there and saying like, no, you can't have a fresh baked piece of bread, then there's something like wrong with that because food is like for enjoyment and pleasure and beauty and amazingness. Like you don't want to like abstain and say like, oh, I can't eat any bread. Yes, you can. Just don't eat the crap. You know what I mean? So there's a difference, and you know that there's a difference. And if you will allow yourself to open your mindset to a new level of awareness, you will recognize that there is so much value in getting ahead of yourself and getting in front of this BS story. So when we work with our students, we don't talk about food at all. We don't talk about nutrition, portions, serving sizes, meal prep, shopping, calorie counting, points, or abstaining from any food groups, because I want you to learn how to organically decide for yourself if what you're choosing to put into your body is going to be helpful for a future version of yourself who always has your best interest at heart, or a past version of yourself who feels like crap, so she eats like crap. And this is what I help my Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system students see. So before we head out, I want to share with you a little story that we talk about in Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system. This is a story that's called the chapter story, and it's a great way to be able to question if you are the one thing that's standing in the way of your own happiness. So think about your repeat habits. Think about the things that you do over and over and over again. And you're like, I don't know, it's not my fault. I had a bad day. My boss said so and so to me. My child did this and that to me. My husband said, who knows what. The dog did whatever. My car, the finances, like all of that stuff. Think about that when I'm reading you this story, and think about where it is that you might be blaming things outside of yourself for things that are contaminating your ability to respond to yourself with love and kindness. And this is a little view of self-discovery and a little view of some of the things that we teach you in Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system. All right, chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find my way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I've fallen again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I fall in. I still fall in. but my eyes are wide open and I see that this is a habit. I know where I am. Actually, this is my fault. And I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. So I want to be very clear that this story is not about food. It's not about falling on or off the wagon. It's about knowing yourself so well that you recognize that some of the habits that you are in right now are taking you into a mindset of a version of yourself that already feels guilty, that already feels shameful, that already feels disappointed in herself, that already feels sad and mad and angry and like in a victim mindset, right? Because it's like, not my fault. I didn't do anything. And yet, the way that you are responding to yourself by telling yourself, oh, just this one, it'll be okay. You had a hard day, just eat this. Like that is actually keeping you stuck in that chapter story where you're just falling into the same hole again and again and again, and you're not recognizing it. And that's what we do in self-discovery is we help you to be able to identify your invisible places where you tend to take yourself into the same place over and over. And you kind of know that you're doing it, but you don't know how to fix it. And that's fair because if you knew how to fix it, you'd have done it already, right? So the moral of this story, again, is if you get stuck in chapter 1 and 2, you're going to be stuck forever because you're going to be doing the same things over and over again with no solution in sight. The minute that you decide that you want to become aware of your sneaky subconscious habits and patterns and shift your focus away from the problem and towards the solution, it'll be time for us to talk. So this week in the show notes, we're going to be giving away a free training called How to Stop Breaking Promises to Yourself. And it's also included in the show notes. You can have a free session to talk to me if you'd like to. We call that our food freedom call. And it's really nice to be able to sit and talk. There's no obligation to work with me because if you're in that chapter 1 and 2, we might have a little bit of prep work to do that will help you to be able to get into the mindset that will allow you to work with us in our Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system. If you're looking for a bite-sized opportunity, or perhaps you're kind of like, I don't even know what self-discovery is, a really great opportunity to do that with is called the Mindset Makeover. And it's a challenge. It's a 21-day program. You can have it to keep forever, but it's a really nice way to be able to understand what it is to be able to open your mind to a new level of awareness. And one of the new memberships that we have is called the Hub Club membership, which allows you to come once per week to a self-discovery lesson that you learn with an actual instructor, with an actual certified instructor. So you can grab all of that stuff in the show notes. And as always, if you want to talk to me, if you just want to say hi, you can either find me on social media. It's just Coach Lisa Callahan. And then if you want to send me an email or anything like that, we can chat on lisa@coachlisacallahan.com. And that's all in the show notes. All right, my friends, that is it for now. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye now. All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.